Glenville Town Board, please rise for the invocation and pledge allegiance. Join me in prayer. Dear Lord, we are meeting today to conduct matters of business. Guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thought, and speech. Impart your wisdom upon our activities so that our affairs may reach a successful conclusion. And thank you for being the source of our guidance. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilman Martin.
Here.
Councilman Aragosa.
Here.
Councilman Zaborski.
Here.
Councilwoman Rosas. Here. Supervisor Penske.
here. Thank you. We have a busy night tonight, packed room. Thank you all for being here tonight. And we do have one add-on to the agenda, and that add-on will be a resolution authorizing the town supervisor to request bids for construction of a pavilion related utility work in Norwood Park. So that bid resolution will be an add-on. We'll take that up after number 13. So with that, we'll start with town council reports. We'll start on my left with Councilman Galuski. Councilwoman Rosbowski.
Mr. Supervisor, I attended the most recent meeting of the Glenville Town Chiefs Association. It was a really good working meeting that they had, and the main topic of conversation was the new radio system that the County of Schenectady is working very hard to put into place, and I'm very excited for that to be, I think they're thinking late summer that they want it to be operational, and then they would move into supplying radios and other equipment to the departments and such. So I'm excited to see that project move forward, and it was a good, productive meeting. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilman Martin.
Yeah, just one thing to report. I had a meeting last week with the town planning staff. I thought it was very good. You were in attendance. I just as the liaison to kick things off, touch base, and set the tone. We'll be following up with additional meetings to continue looking at the zoning code and seeing how we can make some more prudent amendments to that. So that was a good meeting.
Thank you. Councilman Aragosa.
A couple things. I attended on Monday at Proctor's an event sponsored by the Census and Congressman Tonko's office. It was a roundtable discussion with Philip Morris, Dr. Robinson from Shenandoah, and Dr. Dragon from BOCES, discussing the importance of the census and the count and making sure that everybody gets counted. I have some information that I will share via email with the rest of you from Susan Brink, who's the local specialist with the census. And I know you've talked with her yourself, Chris, and hopefully we can get involved. It was well attended. There was superintendents from a lot of the school districts. Peter Narzik from the high school was there. So a lot of people are interested, and we need to be interested. The census really will affect us in the next 10 years in all of our ability to find monies, find grants, and it's very important. The other thing, I did meet a week ago Monday with the GECC. They had a very long agenda, getting started with their new trees initiative that they're working on, and they have a few other things that they're working on. Very good.
Thank you.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to our first item on the agenda, which is the public hearing related to any person interested in the proposed construction of a self-storage building on Amsterdam Road. I'll open that public hearing. We'll ask the applicant to give a overview, and then we'll have people come up and speak on it if they're interested. Just to a place that everyone can see.
You all have a copy of this, correct? So I can just notice it in public. Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Supervisor, town board members. My name is Brian Sipperly with MSB Holdings. We are here tonight to request from the town board a favorable recommendation for the application of the storage overlay to a parcel in the Highway Commercial District in West Glenville. MSB Holdings is a contract vendee on the parcel. The parcel is owned by Mr. Frank Burba. It does not have a logical postal address as it is an undeveloped parcel, but if I was to bring the audience and the board members into the right geography, it would be located directly north of Bennett Trailer along Route 5, aka Amsterdam Road. It is a 2.4 acre vacant parcel. It has 430 feet of frontage along New York State 5 or Amsterdam Road. It's approximately 230 feet deep. Again, I indicated it is wholly in the highway commercial, and the land conservation zone does clip a corner of our parcel, so we'll consider it dual zone, predominantly in the highway commercial zone. The site today is an undeveloped site containing secondary tree growth. It is not within the 100-year floodplain, does not contain wetlands or standing water bodies. There are no easements and encroachments on the parcel, and it is not served by municipal utilities. There is no municipal sewer, water, no closed storm drainage systems in that area of Route 5, and just is served with private utilities such as gas, electric, and telecom. The site itself is gently sloping, it rises up off of Route 5 and gently sloping back down to the north to a larger wetland complex that exists over there. The proposal that we have in front of the town board tonight is for a self-storage project. Okay? If the board was to provide a favorable recommendation to the storage overlay, the self-storage use would then become an allowed use in the highway commercial zone, and we'd be allowed to move on and advance the project through the planning stage. If I will, I'll talk briefly about the plan that is here in front of you all. It is a self-storage project, traditional self-storage project, no outdoor storage of any goods, comprised of 7 buildings totaling just under 25,000 square feet of storage. These will be found-dated designs. The development does not require any waivers from the design standards. It does not require any area variances, and the development grading itself is not encroaching into any critical environment that exists on the parcel or near the parcel. The scope of work is kind of quite simple for a project like this. It involves site clearing, grading, stormwater management, the installation of some electrical runs, some site lighting, and some landscaping. So in terms of development, it is not involving municipal water connections, sewer connections, or district extensions alike. The stormwater management will be subject to a New York State Department of Environmental Conservation Speedies permit, as the disturbance will be over 1 acre, and we can fit all of that, all of the site appurtenances, including stormwater, on the parcel. It will be a closed drainage system. The parking will be paved. The site is served today with a single access point onto New York State 5, pretty much dead center on the parcel. The plan in front of you today holds that existing curb cut, and there will be just slight improvements made as we work with New York State DOT on the approval of that to improve the grading access and some culvert drainage that looks like it has been damaged over the years that passes underneath through it. At that point, that's a very high overview of the project. I'll turn it over to the board at this point for any questions or comments before the public hearing.
I don't think at this point we have any questions or comments. We've been through this in the work session. So I think we'll just open it up to the public.
Just one thing for the public's edification is that this is an overlay, so we are overlaying these uses over the highway commercial zone. It is not a replacement of the uses that are allowed there. Those uses will continue as an overlay. This is adding additional capability. Just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you.
And that's on a case-by-case basis. Each
Correct.
individual plan would have to come before this board to get that.
Thank you.
Anyone wish to be heard on this matter? Yes, Bob.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Robert Kirkham. I reside at 6217 Amsterdam Road, which is right on Route 5. Mr. Zipperly, I spoke with him earlier in the week. He seems like a very nice gentleman and wants to move forward with the project. I do have multiple concerns being a resident and living in a kind of a mixed-use type corridor. Some of the concerns that I have, I did address with him, and unfortunately, I didn't feel like I had satisfactory resolution for me to want to support this type of a project in that corridor. One, I don't think it's a very good fit. I think that if we look back in some of the history with the town in 2008 or 2007, we kind of adopted an open space plan, which directly fits within that corridor of that Route 5 area. So, there's a lot of natural resource value out there. There's a lot of historical value out there. I do feel like it's just not a great fit for that corridor. There have been some businesses that have recently opened in that corridor, which I think are great fits. And I think if we take a look at this by case, if it fits, I don't believe that self-storage fits out there. Some of my main concerns are excessive amounts of traffic. As you know, in that corridor, it's a 55-mile-an-hour corridor. I've lived there for 21 years. I've both been witness to many accidents, some fatalities, which is really tough. I think that if we are going to want to increase the volume of in and out flow, meaning in and out of businesses or in and out of whatever it may be, we need to take a strong look at reducing the speed out there within that corridor. From Bly Road, the Bly Road intersection just past Greeno Industry, it's 45 miles an hour still until you get into the village of Scotia. From there out to the town line, it's 55 miles an hour. So some of the general concerns that I have about the project is, one, all of the businesses within that area out there operate on a normal schedule. They open in the morning, they close in the evening. Mr. Shipperly told me that this is going to be a 24-hour access facility. In a residential type setting with people who live in homes, I've had children. My children live in that area. I did speak with the neighbor. I can't speak for him. I know he's not favorable of the project as well. So I do have concerns with transient type traffic coming in, people putting their storage stuff in there and then trying to access it at all hours of the night. It's just a general concern. Also, that's an area where there's not a lot of light pollution out there. We don't have an excessive amount of street lights. So a self-storage unit that's open 24 hours a day is obviously going to have a lot of light pollution. Also, I realize that he's saying, that the footprint of the project really is not a major impact to the environment. But, a lot of my property is on land conservation. I'm very concerned about the vehicles that are going in and out of there, what's being stored there. We can't answer a lot of those questions. So anyway, I appreciate your time, and I hope that you strongly consider this to possibly not be the right fit for that corridor. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bob. Anyone else wish to be heard on this matter? Going once, going twice. Seeing none, that public hearing is now closed. Next public hearing we'll open is regarding the fire districts to construct and operate LED signs without proceeding to the unqualified application of the planning board process. That public hearing is now open. Again, just to explain on this one, the fire departments are looking to put LED signage up in front of their departments. Many of them are not in an area that allows it by zoning. This potential solution would allow the town board to balance the public need a public safety need against waiving the zoning for those fire departments within suburban residential and agricultural residential in particular. So this is to hear anyone interested on that particular matter, where we waive zoning for the fire departments to have an LED sign in front of their fire home houses. Anyone want to be heard on that matter? Going once?
Chris?
Yes.
Mr. Supervisor, just to clarify, it's waiving the application for use, any type of variance as regards to the signs. The signs will still be applicable to regular zoning codes, but the application, they would not need to go through, or if they are already in non-compliance, they would not have to become in compliance other than the regular types of responsibilities that any business has to do with LED signs.
Good clarification. Does that change anyone's mind? Going once, going twice, seeing none, public hearing is now closed. We do move to the privilege of the floor. I do not have anyone signed up. The privilege of the floor is now open. Anyone wish to be heard on any matter regarding town business? Privilege of the floor. Going once, going twice, seeing none. Closed. I'm going to take something out of order really quickly here. We're going to switch number 8 and number 9. We do have some guests with us. The Schenectady Heritage Foundation is going to present a check to the town regarding the historic Yates Mansion. So I'll come down and we'll do that now. Oh, thank you. We're not supposed to open a gift for everybody, but we should let them know that you are donating $5,000 to the Yates Mansion
Yes.
to help with the restoration.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here with everyone, and such a great turnout for your State of the Town message tonight. And Schenectady Heritage Foundation is happy to support the preservation and restoration of the Yates Mansion. We've been following your progress for a couple of years now, and Chris was nice enough to give the foundation board members, some of them, a tour last year of the progress that you've made on the mansion so far. And although I had never been in it before, it was obvious, because of the work that we do, that you've done a tremendous amount of work already. And we wish you well on it, and we're happy to support it. And we hope that the historic preservation goes well.
Thank you.
in the town. So.
Maybe we can get a picture, someone take a picture. It's not every day we get a check.
I guess I'm front and center, I have no excuse not to, right? All right, on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Good. You got a real camera. Yeah. There you go. Just back up.
We'll have to tell Senator Tedisco usually gives us checks, but those big ones you can't cash.
I know.
This one you can cash. Now we'll move on to the state of the town. Which I want to thank folks for coming out to today. If Kaluski looks up my speech behind me, just tell me. I'm surprised he didn't come in a white suit. Hello, we're off to a good start.
You did talk about it.
You're going to shake his hand? Well, again, thank you so much for coming out to this. This is, for me, I've been supervisor, it's my 11th year, and I've been doing this for 11 years, and it's so important for me, and I know the board members, to be able to do this, part of being transparent to our community, and this, in connection with our budget meetings we do in the fall, is an opportunity for us to come out and tell you what we're thinking, what we want to accomplish, and an opportunity for you to have input into that. So to me, it's really, I think, an important piece of what we're doing to serve you, the community, and I do want to thank you for that. Before we begin, I do want to acknowledge a few guests in the room and thank them for coming. Representing Congressman Tonko, we have Colleen Williams. Thank you very much for being here today. We have from our county legislature, Michelle Ostrowitz. Thank you for being here today. And from our village, Mayor Tom Gifford and Trustee George Sobachuk. And a lot of other folks that are involved in the town here. I won't go through and name everybody because there's a lot of committee members here and whatnot, but thank you for being here as well. So, I guess we'll just get right to it. And I think we'll start, obviously, in the beginning. So, not that we're going to go over a full 200 years of history. But I do want to just say that it's an important year for us, and I want to thank Jill Weisman is here, and the folks on the committee that are planning our bicentennial celebration. This is a special year for us, not that you're 200, only once. So we really want to celebrate it this year. And the history of the town, which we call Glenville 2020, has had a little controversy, unfortunately, because our seal right in front of me here said January 2nd, 1821. And so people say, why are we celebrating 1820 when it says January 2nd, 1821? It was actually the act of the state legislature that occurred on April 14th of 1820 that created the town of Glenville. In that act that was passed in 1840 that created the town, it said the town could not meet until its organizational meeting until the first Tuesday of the following year, which was January 2nd, 1821. January 2nd, 1821 was actually the first town board meeting that occurred on the corner of Ridge Road and not Ridge Road, Sacandaga, where Stewart's is now. There was a tavern called the Nicholas Van Patten Tavern, or Little Nicky's. And they did things right back then. They had town board meetings in taverns. It's too bad we got away from that.
Bring that back.
But at the very first meeting, they appointed the first supervisor, they appointed the highway commissioners, they appointed all the folks in the town, commissioners of poorhouses. There was poorhouses back then that the folks, residents ran for people who were indigent, and overseers of schools. So they appointed all those folks. And then the very first law passed by the town of Glenville was no studded horse, no stud horse, could be in the common area between certain dates. That was the first thing we were concerned about in the town of Glenville. The second one was no sheep could be in the common area. And the third one is all hogs had to be yoked. So those were the first three laws passed, and then they adjourned. We've come a long way since. Now, this year we have a lot we're planning to do in the town. First thing we're going to kick off is in April, we want to plant 200 bicentennial trees across the town. We're going to ask our residents to help us with that. So we have some public spaces we're going to be putting these trees in, but we want residents also to take them and plant them around the town so that, obviously the connection to growth and many years to come, but these are trees that we're going to be able to plant and celebrate our bicentennial with. We're also working on speakers throughout the year. So we're going to have a speaker series where there'll be 4 lectures about town history throughout the year. There's a schedule coming out on that. But you'll be able to come and learn about Yates Mansion, for example, and some other things from our history over the course of the year. One of the highlights would be Park Fest we're working on, which is going to feature the infamous tug-of-war with the town of Rotterdam. If the folks don't recall, back in 1970, there was a tug-of-war over Mohawk River, and it was to settle the question of which town is older. Because really, Rotterdam and Glenville were created out of the same act. We were both parts of the city of Schenectady. We were the 4th ward, they were the 3rd ward. And both we were created at the same time. Back then, when you put your paperwork into the state of New York to become a town, nobody time-stamped it. So there's always been this controversy, who's the older town? They had a tug-of-war back in 1970 during the 150th anniversary. Glenville won that tug-of-war. But they say, Rotterdam says, that there was controversy that the Village of Scotia Fire Department cheated. That's what they say. And they say that we hooked up a rope to the fire truck. Now, I don't know, I wasn't around back then, but someone just said it's true. You're not supposed to admit to that, Linda. So we're going to try to have a rematch in July and see who finally wins that one. 200th Gala, we're looking at a dinner dance in September.
We got your truck now.
Oh, good. Dinner dance in July, it's actually July 17th at ESAM. There'll be more details coming out on that. We're in talks with Stewart's Ice Cream. Since they're on the site of our first board meeting site, they're going to name a flavor after the town of Glenville. We have to think of the name. But all year they'll have a flavor that will be Glenville specific, and they're going to do an event out at their store there with maybe free ice cream cones or something for the residents. One I'm excited about, Wapalo is going to brand a can that is a commemorative can for a bicentennial. So they're working on a design now that is going to be limited edition, and it will be a bicentennial can coming out of Wapalo, which is going to be really, really good. And then we're talking about a January 2021 celebration, something like a first night that would conclude our festivities with maybe something around January 1st or January 2nd to coincide with the first town board meeting, so that we do celebrate that as well. So usually, I think folks that have come to this before know we spend a lot of time talking about economic development and budget. Tonight we're going to talk more about infrastructure and investments that need to be made in the town and how we got there and why we need to do that. But I do want to touch on economic development. We're still a very busy town as far as economic development is concerned. We have had quality growth in the last 15 years or so that is really unrivaled by many others. You see it in our once dark and empty commercial corridors. They're now lit and vibrant, full. Just so much is going on in the town. This past year alone, in 2019, we approved 8 large commercial projects. Among those, the biggest, Belgioso, the cheese producer down in the Business and Technology Park, is constructing a 96,000 square foot cheese production plant in Glenville. This is hoping to be completed by the end of the year, where the first block of cheese will be off the assembly line. Belgioso will be supplying the entire Northeast out of Glenville, New York. That includes the New York City and Boston markets. That's a lot of cheese out of here. Not only does that bring us new tax growth in the park, it brings hundreds of jobs. And they'll be sourcing all of their local, their milk here locally, so that it helps our dairy farmers in the area. So that's a huge win for us, and we're excited about getting that going. Right over here in the Hannaford Plaza, Benderson has invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into new tenants, Five Guys being primarily among them. Everybody seems to be happy about that one. They also are bringing Starbucks and Chase Bank to a commercial property after Hallmark has now vacated and moved over in the larger building. Pizza Works, we're excited about. On Route 50, will locate a 7,200 square foot building south of their current location to help accommodate their growth. GE Solar received site plan approval to install a commercial solar array at the town's landfill property at Bar Harbor Road, which we're excited about. The airport park, mostly thanks to Ray Gillen and Metroplex, has really begun to grow. We have a $5.2 million construction of a 47,000 square foot manufacturing facility happening right now as we speak, and a variety of other projects coming in there. Mohawk Honda has invested $1 million in our town by constructing a 12,000 square foot auto detailing center right on their property next to their dealership. Adirondack Beverage has expanded to meet their growth, and SQP Packaging in the business park has also expanded to meet their growth. And lastly, let's see, I'm supposed to be doing this. I'm supposed to be seeing these. There's Belgioso. And then lastly, the PDD on Dutch Meadows, which will be a large luxury standard multifamily housing facility on Dutch Meadows, which will include walking trails, parkland convenience, which I'll get into in a little while, and more. We've secured millions of dollars in grants. One of the, I think, the important things is when we're doing the investments that we're doing here in the town of Glenville, that we do that using grants, so it's not all on residents. And we brought in millions of dollars of grants over the recent years to help support our growth. We've updated our zoning. As you know, we passed our comprehensive plan a couple of years ago. Our comprehensive plan is a little bit out of sync with our zoning now because of that. So Jim and I know Mike have been working on it with the Code Review Committee to update zoning. The one that I will mention is Freeman's Bridge Road corridor. There's a laser focus on Freeman's Bridge Road this year and coming years. And what we want to do there is change the zoning down there. One of the things that's difficult about Freeman's Bridge Road is the different zonings that are going on over different parcels. So many different things are happening on Freeman's Bridge Road. We have retail stores next to junkyards, next to chemical companies, next to farms, next to retail, residential. It just was not well thought out over the years. And so what we want to do is unify that zoning on Freeman's Bridge Road to try to encourage a multi-use development down there, where folks will come in and do maybe a mixture of retail and office and some residential. And that's going to be our focus on Freeman's Bridge Road. That's a rendering of what they call complete streets. We've done a study. We got a grant to do a study on Freeman's Bridge Road. Part of our walkability, which I'm going to talk about in a few minutes here in the town of Glenville, is making sure there's more pedestrian paths around. There's a lot going on Freeman's Bridge Road in relation to that. But this study has started us down the path of getting funding to bring complete streets concept to the town, to Freeman's Bridge Road. Beautification with lights, banners, and then the pedestrian paths, much like what we did here in the town center. We want to duplicate that on Freeman's Bridge Road. And then lastly, you know, small business is the basis of the town. We're a small business town, and we want to continue to be a small business town. And we're looking at ways of supporting our small business everywhere from what I just talked about, Pizza Works, on the north end of town, looking what we can do with some of those empty sites now at the old Bayou and the other restaurant up there, working with the village on the small businesses on Mohawk Ave. We want to make sure that we're here to support them, and we're looking at different programs where we can help them, where we could be a one-stop shop for them. We can help them with financing, we can help them get expertise, we can help them with our READY program, which is, again, grants for beautification of businesses and helping them to secure grants. So really, we want to make sure we don't lose sight of small businesses in our town that make us what we are. We have brought, the last thing I want to mention on this, brought thousands of jobs into this town. And that should not be kind of glossed over lightly. In today's day and age, if you can bring jobs into your town, that's the basis for your residential growth. That's the basis for economic development activity continuing. But in our business and technology park alone, we've probably brought over 1,000 new jobs in the past recent years. And I'm very proud of that, and I think we as a community should be proud of that. Not a lot of communities can say they're growing with jobs. The other area that we spend a lot of time and effort on, and in my administration I'm proud, I think have really done a lot to invest in, is our parks and our recreation. That's what makes the town local. Jobs are a basis, and now to attract people into the town, you have to provide them with recreational opportunities. This past year, we held our first Love My Parks Day, where we went into the parks and cleaned them up, and I think Gina planted trees or bushes or something, and we all took on some parks, Mike and I, and some others, and we just went in and tried to help invest in our parks a little bit more. We've hired new staff over the past couple of years to really meet the needs of a growing parks department. As more programs are happening in the parks, we need more people, and we have brought those folks on. Hosted our third Thursdays in the Park. That's a growing event. People are excited about that. They come out and listen to a band or watch a movie, but that's been successful. We held our first park trail event, which we walked around, talked about a few minutes. We opened what we call the Glenville Greenway Trail. And this Glenville Greenway Trail, which is not easy to say, has connected Indian Meadows Park with Anderson Park in one big 3.5-mile loop. So we've been able to connect our parks. One of the things, as I talk about walkability here in a few minutes of pedestrian-friendly town, is making sure we're making connections between our neighborhoods, our commercial corridors, and in our parks. And this was an important piece that allowed us to be able to connect a walking trail to 2 major parks in the town of Glenville. We demolished the old Anderson house, which is on the Anderson property, which was falling in. That was an important project for us. As I mentioned, we opened the Greenway Trail. We held our 10th annual Oktoberfest. Dave Hennel is here. Thank you for all your work on that, Dave. Hugely successful. That's more than a town event. That's a regional event. We get people from as far away as the Adirondacks and probably even further now. And that's just become a great event for the town. So thank you for all your work on that. We upgraded our energy efficient lighting at the ice rinks in the Meadows, and we upgraded our security cameras in both parks, Melwick and Indian Meadows. We had a little problem with graffiti, and we had to increase our security in both those parks. Our goals this year, they're pretty aggressive. First, and we've already approved the bonding on this, but using some grant money as well, we'll construct a new Melwick Pavilion, playground, and concession stand. This is a $580,000 project in Melwick Park that will help us complement what we've already done there in the past couple of years, where we expanded our fields. So Melwick has always been a soccer park. Now we have football fields, we have lacrosse fields, and as they continue to grow, we're going to provide the same type of amenities that we have in Indian Meadows for Melwick. It's a large commitment by the town, and I'm excited about it. We are going out to bid. We have a bid tonight we're going out towards, and so we'll hopefully get that done by the end of the year. We're going to complete 2 of the 4 links to build a second entrance at Indian Meadows Park. We need badly a second entrance at Indian Meadows. It's too congested. For security reasons, we need to have 2 different, or for public safety, I should say, 2 different entrances. And we're going to continue our investment in that park as well. That's about a $250,000 investment, and it will only get us 2 of the 4 links to get a second entrance back out to Drums. This will be a park road that will, instead of going down the long park road and then getting around the perimeter back towards football, if you're familiar with the park, this will take a right at softball and cut through to football and then back up to Drums eventually. So there'll be a 1 in, 1 out type of flow to the park. We also will be building Indian Meadows Playground Pavilion, a second one. There is a playground pavilion there. It's very popular. It gets rented a lot. We had a need for a second one. We'll be doing that. And thanks to some support from our friends at the county, we'll be getting some support for this project and the next 2 as well. Resurfacing the tennis courts in Indian Meadows. If you've been in Indian Meadows recently and seen those courts, they're in horrible shape. And the basketball court as well. What I'm most proud of is the work we've done on this Dutch Meadows project I mentioned a little bit earlier. I see the folks in here tonight from the Legacy Project. Thank you for all the good work you do on that. When they wanted to build on Dutch Meadows, we made sure we negotiated, because it was PDD, which means it's a overlay zoning, that we're able to negotiate some things. 2 things we negotiated with the builder is, 1, a path that will connect Route 50 down Dutch Meadows to Freeman's Bridge Road. That's another connection walking connection. It's important. And when I start talking a little bit about the walkability of the town, you'll see how that fits in. But the second thing we negotiated was a park, a new park. And I don't know if you can really see it well there, but it's a 5-acre park in the blue circle. Across the street from that is where the Dutch Meadows project is going to be, and that's at the corner of Dutch Meadows and Route 50, as you can see just to the left of that. This park will be a future home of the Legacy Project. And I'm proud that we're going to be working with the folks at the Legacy Project to give the veterans of our community a dedicated park. And the work that they're doing is unbelievable. And so I just ask you to give them a round of applause because they're doing so very good. I don't know how many years you guys have been at it, but I've been involved for the past couple of years, and I told you, we can't give up. It's going to take some time, but we'll get there. And so,
Thank you.
So infrastructure and walkability, that's the next focus here for the town in the coming year. As you see, we opened up the new Glen Ridge Woodhaven link right outside here in front of Town Center. This was an important link to open up because it connected Woodhaven, a major neighborhood, to our commercial corridor. That was the goal from the beginning when we started building all these sidewalks, that folks would sometimes say, you're building sidewalks to nowhere, I don't understand it. They're starting to connect now. And so we're connecting Woodhaven to the town center. These are just some pictures of that. People use that. A lot of people have used it. Our next focus will be to try to connect into Van Buren then, so we can connect into the parks. And we just talked about the connection between Indian Meadows and Anderson. If we can get from the town center to down Van Buren to Anderson, now we've connected the parks, the commercial corridor, and 2 major neighborhoods. That's really the goal. And I'm hoping we're able to find some grant money for that. We also have, as I mentioned earlier, received some grant money to do a complete streets program on Freeman's Bridge Road. Working with the state of New York, we were able to get money. They're going to redeck Freeman's Bridge Road this summer. As they redeck Freeman's Bridge Road, we were able to successfully get a bike path on that bridge that connects into Maxon Road, but now it's going to connect into Freeman's Bridge Road. And finally, the village and the town and the county were successful in receiving a CFA, a grant from the state of New York, to fix up the path from Freeman's Bridge Road to Shawnee over in the village of Scotia. So we'll be connecting now 2 major connections, one to the city of Schenectady and one now out to the village along the river for connectivity, walkability on Freeman's Bridge Road. So once we get our Freeman's Bridge Road grant money, which we hope in 2022, that will bring us all the way up to Route 50, Dutch Meadows. And now you have a connection all the way from Dutch Meadows all the way down into the rest of the path. So we're very excited about that. That path along the river was a $450,000 grant to us. And the one that I'm most proud of is the Safeways to School grant that we received, another $450,000 this year. You know, I had calls from both Burn Hills School District and actually Burn Hills School District, Scotia Glenville School District, and the folks in Applause about 3 different school districts, 3 different schools, O'Rourke Middle School, Sackendog Elementary School, and Glencliff. So here I have 3 different school districts, 3 different towns, a village, and 2 counties, and I got to figure out how are we going to get these sidewalks done across all these different folks. And we sat down with them, and I want to thank Melissa for all our work on this. We sat down and we put together a program where we asked for money to build a sidewalk from Applause to Glencliff, a sidewalk from where it ends in Saratoga County, because O'Rourke Middle School's in Glenville, from Saratoga County to O'Rourke Middle School, and down in Sackendog where the village and the town kind of meet. How are we going to get this? And we put in the grant, and it was a home run, and I'm just proud that we're able to get that done. And so that this year, hopefully, we'll have our Safe Ways to Schools for all those folks, all those different districts, how important that is. And then lastly, the All-Clause grant that we're looking at building a sidewalk. I know the county has reached out and we're going to sit down and talk about an engineering study. That's the next thing we need to do. But we're able to secure $80,000 to help build sidewalks in All-Clause, which we know are long. I see a bunch of All-Clause folks here. You can tell me how long you've been waiting for sidewalks there, but we'll get it done. How long?
Since I last took them out.
It sounds like a long time ago.
Longer than I've lived in Outlaws.
That's a long time.
Yeah. Yates Mansion, things are starting to move along quite nicely. We received our check here tonight. We raised $4,000 at Pizza and Wing Bowl the other last week. That was very exciting. But we're ready now to start moving on Yates Mansion. This is a rendering of what Yates Mansion will look like when it's done. Those windows there, we received grant money from Senator Tedisco and Mary Beth Walsh, $150,000. Both those grants have been awarded, and so we are ready to buy these windows. Actually, we have the bid done for the windows, and we will start constructing the windows. We're also going to do run the mechanicals in the house and hook up all utilities. We need to hook up water there, and we need to get heating and cooling in. We need to button the house up, secure it, as I mentioned, replace all the windows, and begin renovations. It probably will not be ready by the end of 2020, which our hope was, but we're certainly on track for it being done probably in the next 15 or 18 months, somewhere in there. Also, infrastructure investment, our senior center. I see Ron Bach is here, our president, and all the work Vicki Hills does with the senior center. Thank you so much. Another long project, Ron, that we finally got done. And the theme of tonight is we got a grant to help do it. We upgraded the senior center by the expansion, which is now underway. I want to thank you, Ron, for all your work on that. Without you stepping up on this $440,000 project and putting some money in for the seniors. We got $200,000 from Senator Tedisco. The town's put in $140,000. But it's going to help us expand our programming, it's going to help us provide more services to our seniors, and it's going to keep it the premier senior center that we have in the entire area. So I want to thank you, and I'll show you a little, it's hard to see, but off to the left there, that whole brick area is the new expansion to the senior center. How many square feet? 1,400. So we're very excited about it. That's the inside right now as it's being constructed. We hope to have it open in March. After that, Ron and I have talked about a new AV system being placed in the center so that seniors can have better access to movies and technology and multi-presentations and things like that. We're committed to repaving the parking lot after that. There's a lot of deferred maintenance in all of our buildings. This one, our senior center. And now's the time where we're going to start making these investments. To repave the parking lot is probably about an $80,000 commitment. We're going to replace the doors that have rotted out on the opposite side of the building. There's two major doors there. That's about a $10,000 cost. We completed the floor renovation where we redid the entire floor in the senior center, and I think it looks great. And we installed energy efficient lighting. Senior center is an important building for us where we're able to provide these services that I talked about, and so I'm very proud that we're able to continue doing that into 2020. Also, as far as infrastructure is concerned, paving and water. Paving, we understand that we have not been able to pave the roads to the level that we'd like to over the recent years. The state has kept CHIPS money at the same level for years now. What happens though is when they continue to give us the same amount of CHIPS money, but the price of aggregate continues to rise, that means we have to do fewer streets. The only money we use for paving has been CHIPS money over the years. We're fortunate to hear, I guess, that they're not cutting CHIPS this year. At some point, they're gonna cut chips. But they're keeping chips exactly where it was again last year. So it's gonna put us further behind. That said, I'm proud that I put in my budget and this board approved adding $150,000 of capital reserves into the paving budget for 2020. I'm proposing a 3-year plan that we do that in 2021 and 2022, representing $350,000 in new spending in paving so that we can catch up with our paving program on the roads that need it. We understand there are roads that need it. I've been on it. This year, I talked to Tom Capola, we're going to look to complete the Woodhaven paving project, which we could not get to all of last year. So we will complete that. We will finally turn our attention to the Scotch Bush area with this additional $150,000 in reserves. And then, as I said, continue that on to a 3-year plan. I know Glen Oaks is in bad need of paving as well. And so that, I believe, will be up to the highway superintendent, but that, I believe, is coming up in the next couple of years. Regarding water, we spent a lot of resources in water over the past couple of years. We hardened our water plant, we protected it against flooding. We've done a lot to make sure that our water supply is protected. Glen Oaks water is something we've been talking to folks down there for a while. They're on village water right now, but we are now in a position where we might be able to build the infrastructure needed to bring the folks from Glen Oaks water onto the town water system. That benefits the folks in Glen Oaks for a couple of reasons. One, it's cheaper for them. They pay out a rate currently in the village. And number two, they get better water pressure for the town of Glenville. So we're looking at making that investment. We have an engineering study going out to bid on that currently, but we anticipate that's about a $300,000 investment for Glen Oaks. We also know that we have to clean and repaint our tanks. We have 2 tanks. Very important that you do this periodically. It's been a while since we've done it last. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it's an expensive undertaking to repaint the inside of the tanks. So that's something we'll be looking at in 2020. And we'll convert our highway heat from oil to natural gas, which will just be a cleaner fuel source for us. And then lastly, at the water plant, I mentioned how we hardened our plant against flooding and other natural disasters. We also completed the interconnection from our wells, 2 additional wells at a cost of $420,000. That'll ensure we continue to have safe, quality supply of water for our residents. Now the capital buildings. So capital projects and buildings. As I mentioned, there's a lot of deferred maintenance in the buildings, and there's been a lot of deferred maintenance here. We're going to start talking about this year we're ready for our town center campus redesign. This building, I think as you know, is inadequate and does not fit the needs of the town. We can go into a long list of reasons why. There's not enough space. We did a programming analysis of it. We are currently in a 16,000 square foot building. Our programming needs are over 19,000 square feet, and that's without the storage issue that we have, which I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. Our current building presents safety concerns for our staff. I will say our officers are not safe in their area. Our town hall staff are not necessarily safe in their area, and the courts, this room itself is not adequate for what needs to be done to meet the standards of today's needs. Now, some people have said, let's just expand on our current lot. And we took time and we looked at that. We are on 2 acres. We're on 2 acres. We have no room to expand on this lot. We did look at doing some small expansion that would have cost somewhere between $2.5 and $3 million. It wasn't worth the amount of money that you would put into it and what you would have got out of it, unfortunately. We do own another lot, which is on the other side of the library. That's 6 acres, but that's too small. The buildable piece is only 2 acres. The rest of it is a steep slope that is not adequate for building without extensive investment in the site. So it doesn't make sense to move everything there either. The current building has not been marketable. We've done everything we can, short of a public for sale sign, but we have brought folks in to bring them in to look around. We looked at demolition of this building. The demolition of the building is just too expensive to make it worthwhile. So what the architects have finally settled on after they looked at 4 different options on 5 different sites over the course of the past year and a half, and they settled on the cheapest, most efficient, best option for the town related to its storage needs, its safety concerns, efficiency, and handicap accessibility is to, well, before I get into what they want, these are just some pictures of the town hall, just so you get a sense of storage. So this is someone's office, right out front in the public area, actually, right on the other side of this wall. We have hand trucks being stored in front of their desks. We have paper towel boxes being stored in front of their desks. There's just no room for any of the things that we have. This is someone's office where they have a couple of years of boxes stored. This is not a proper way to store documents, by the way. We could probably get in trouble from the state of New York on some of this stuff. But there's just boxes sitting everywhere in the town hall. Again, this is another person's desk that has water meters just sitting on their desk because we have nowhere else to put them. This is right out front in the main area. These boxes go back to 2016. They're just sitting there, tax records. This is someone's desk that has nowhere to put any of the maps from the town infrastructure. That's not a proper way to store these. This is right out here in the front hallway here, which is way too small, way too confined. What happens on Tuesdays and Thursdays, court night, people start amassing out here at 4 o'clock when they're getting ready for court. And they start blocking up that hallway out there, that little hallway. And residents coming in to try to do business can't get through that sometimes. It's not particularly safe. I think Linda would attest to this. It's not particularly safe. We have a very small area, a lot of people amassed in there and spilling out over into the town hall offices. It's not safe for our officers. You see this clunky thing you walk through here to come into a public meeting, which is used for the court. This is the, I guess they call it a selling port over behind us here. Talking to the chief, he has indicated that there's not enough room for officers in transporting prisoners. When they get out of the car, they're in close proximity to a wall. I don't think you can even open the door fully. And so when you're dealing with people in this situation, you're not in a safe environment. That needs to be fixed. This is one of the most egregious things. So we have 3 workstations for our officers down in the police department. Sometimes you have 4 or 5 officers there at one time. So you have to figure out who's going to use the desk when. But you got a pole right in the middle of one officer's desk. I don't know if you can see that, where if he backs up with his chair, he or she has been hitting it. And it just isn't a good work environment for our people. This is the holding area. Not good visibility into the holding area for our officers, I'm told by the chief. And there needs to be some upgrades there as well. This is one of the craziest things, you know. This is the lack of accessibility, but in this building you have to sometimes go downstairs to go back upstairs. It's kind of like Dr. Seuss. But if you want to come and engage with the court, and do something there, there's no handicap accessibility. You have to go up these stairs, and you can't get there. And then that very dark little corridor upstairs, which you can't even see to the right, is where our planning department is, which is just sad, just sad. In order to get to meetings in the town hall, you have to walk through other meetings, you have to walk through other rooms. It just does not lend itself to a 21st century office building for the amount of growth we have in this town and what we're trying to do to serve our residents. So, campus redesign the idea is to keep this current building for a dedicated public safety building and adequate space for training, storage, and enhanced safety for our personnel. We have a serious storage need, and this building will give us the ability to have a dedicated public safety and a dedicated storage facility for all that we need going forward. The building Then they would propose that we build a new, smaller administrative building at the town's neighboring property. And I'm going to show you a site plan in just a moment on that. The total project cost on this is expected to be about $4.5 to $5 million. Not chump change, no question about it. And I know residents are going to say, how are you paying for it and how does it impact you? Well, the funding so far, and as I've said before, and I'm going to talk a little bit about this in the budget portion in just a minute, we have prepared for this for some time now. We've known we needed to do this. We didn't just kind of do this on our whim. We prepared for this. We went out, we got a grant, $1.5 million is already in hand. We have about $500,000 in capital reserves that we're able to put into this. I was hoping that we'd have $1 million, but I will be honest with you, we put a lot into parks and the senior center and other areas, so we don't have as much in reserves that I had hoped for this, but we still have about $500,000. And so we would probably be looking at bonding $3 million over 30 years, which is about $200,000 a year in new spending in order to support this building. We can do that. Jason and I talked about that. We can do that and still keep us under the tax cap. So that, I think, is important. And this gives us what we need to operate efficiently for years and years to come. The site plan is basically, as I mentioned, the building on the left is our current building. That will be the dedicated public safety. The building in the middle is the library. That's not ours. You can see the county property line there. And then we would be, the town hall would be up on the, my right anyway, up on the right, where our history center currently is. The history center would have to go. The history center is in fairly bad shape. And so we would build right there about a 7,000 square foot building, and we would have better circulation around the campus. We would have dedicated parking area. You can't really see it on there, but down on the lower left, there's a parking area for the police department with fencing. They need secure area. That would keep it away from the rest of the public. At some point, we would like to incorporate the library's improvements that they, I think, are going to do in the next couple of years into this. But this would give us a campus setting that is really fitting for a town our size and our residents and our employees. And so we're going to have more discussion on this in March. I'm going to have a dedicated public meeting on this where there's more information, more details, and we'll have more renderings for people to look at and then talk more about what the next steps are. We've also invested in our staff because we know how important that is. We've added a part-time laborer in our parks. I mentioned that earlier. We also added a full-time laborer in parks this year. We added a full-time laborer in highway. We've added new police officers in 2018 and 2019. And we added a part-time code enforcer in 2019. That's a significant investment in people. We know we're growing, we know we need these people, but it really is something for us to be able to absorb that into the budget without breaking the tax cap. And I'm proud of that, and I'm proud of the work that our employees have done to help us meet our needs of our residents. Investments in public safety. We've completed the police department's new dedicated gun range, short one roof that we're going to get done. But I'm proud to say they have their own dedicated gun range now. I think it's a better situation for training. I want to thank the chief and Tom Coppola and all who were involved to make that happen, but we were able to find a successful solution for that. We are working right now. We have a grant to help the fire departments with training. We're going to help buy some sort of apparatus for training, I've been told, for the fire departments. We have $120,000 to spend to do something, and I'm hoping that that gets done this year. And we added a dedicated traffic safety officer, which was important to the town. And one of the exciting things I think for 2020 is we're exploring with Burn Hills, the Boston Lake School District, a dedicated school resource officer. I want to thank the superintendent. I know they've been in the board, been working hard on making sure this is something that they're able to support. Right now, the proposal is that we would split the cost of this SRO based on the school's use. In the summer months, we would get the SRO for other things that we need, traffic or whatever else. I know there are people here from Scotia Glenville School District. This offer is on the table for Scotia Glenville School District as well. They've chosen not to go forward with it. So we're not picking one school district over another. This is school district driven. And Burn Hills has been a leader in this, and we're willing to talk to Scotia Glenville if they're interested. The other thing I want to focus in on this year is ethics. We've talked a little bit about it. It came up pretty big last year, and I want to bring this forward and have discussions on it. But it really, the basic principle is one person should not be in a position to serve two interests. That's fundamental. It's something we shouldn't even have a disagreement on. But it appears that sometimes people aren't quite sure when a conflict exists. The principles of ethics reform, in my mind, and what I will bring forward, are based on three things. If one person is employed by a municipality that does direct business with the town of Glenville, you have a conflict. Simple. If your employee does business with the town of Glenville in any way, you have a joint conflict. If one has a fiduciary responsibility, consider this, to their employee, and at the same time a fiduciary responsibility to the town board, how do you serve each of those responsibilities? So, let's think this through. If you were an employee of the town of Colony, and the town of Colony does no business with the town of Glenville, there's no conflict. There's no. But if you are a village or county employee in a policy-making capacity, there's clearly a conflict of interest because you're doing business with the town of Glenville. And lastly, if one has a direct interest through their employer in any matter that may come before the board, this includes financial, aka budget, or contractual matters, you have a conflict. So I'm going to bring forward a package that I'm going to ask the board to consider. We'll have a discussion on it, but it's important. It exposed a blind spot for us. We have a weak ethics law in the town of Glenville. We never had to address it before. Unfortunately, we do have to address it now. And we've worked on that in 2020. Lastly, I just want to bring up budget, because you know I'm not going to get through a state of town without talking about budget and finance. The 2020 budget is the 10th consecutive budget where we reduced the town's debt from $23 million to $12 million. Cut it more than half in my 11 years. This will be my 11th year as supervisor. In that same time, we've also protected our fund balance by 80%, meaning we did not allocate our fund balance for operational uses. This protects your savings account. It's a lot like, I've said this before, you raid your 401k to pay your bills. Those days are over. We're protecting our fund balance. We've kept the town's levy the lowest in the county and always below the tax cap, which not a lot of people can say. So when people say to me, how are we doing what we're doing and all these investments I talked about, all these projects I've talked about, is the past 10, 11, 12 years, we've made very difficult decisions. And it's put us in a position where we now have resources to make investments in our town. Going forward, we're going to continue to pledge to continue cutting our debt, protecting the fund balance, and staying under the tax cap. Those are the principles for our budget going forward. And tax levy relief remains to be a priority. It's becoming more and more difficult, but it remains to be a priority for us as we go forward. So 2020, strong foundation. We're positioned for growth in the new decade and beyond. And people should be excited about that. Now is the time for infrastructure growth and property tax relief priority over the coming years. It's prepared us for the 21st century. As I mentioned before, this has been something that we've been working on for some time. And the three legs of the stool that allowed us to now focus on our infrastructure is the fact that our debt has been cut, which has saved us operational money, out of our budget. It's lowered our interest rates because we've had a better bond rating. We've also been able to save our fund balance, the savings account. So when the time comes, just like town hall or the town is just like your own home. When the time comes to have to make investments in your buildings, at home, if you're using your savings account to pay your daily bills, you're not going to have the money to fix your roof when you need to fix your roof. We've protected that. Now we're able to fix our roof. Now we're able to put money into our facilities. And so I am very proud and very excited about where we're going this year and in the future years, near future. Again, I want to thank our employees, our volunteers. We know that without all that you do, we would never be in this position that we are in now. And I want to thank you for your partnership over the years, because I think you can say now, at times we might have disagreed, at times it might seem like I was just one cheap person, didn't want to pay for anything. But we are now in a position to move forward, and I'm excited about our future. So thank you very much for coming, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you. One way to get the room filled is to promise a promotion to somebody. That gets half the room. So we will now move on to the resolution appointing Matthew Weiss to the position of lieutenant in the Glenville Police Department. Do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Just to start discussion, there was a vacancy in the Town of Glenville Police Department in the position of lieutenant. Civil Service competitive promotional list for the lieutenant position expired in December 2018. The pending post of the new test and the results of that test, the Town of Glenville will need a person capable of performing a lieutenant's duties. Interviews were conducted, and the chief has put forward what we believe to be the best position for that job. Sergeant Matthew Weiss is a 14-year veteran of the Glenville Police Department, performing admirably and well in his performance and duties, and he is the selected candidate by the chief who recommends this promotion. So that is the resolution. Do I have any questions or comments?
Mr. Supervisor, I would just like to add to your comments that I've known Sergeant Weiss for many years now, since before I was on the town board. I just found him to be someone who acts with integrity and puts the residents of our town first. I've had the pleasure of doing ride-alongs with Sergeant Weiss, and he always answered all of my questions, even the dumb ones, about what our officers do each and every day. And I'm very pleased to see the chief recommend him for this promotion.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please report the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Aragosa?
Yes.
Councilman Jaworski?
Congratulations, yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Congratulations, Lieutenant. We are now going to have a swearing-in ceremony. I'm going to invite the chief up first to say a few words.
I'd just like to recognize a few people that are here with us tonight before we swear Matt in. Matt has brought along this evening his wife Melissa, son Matthew, and his mother and father-in-law, Gail and Tom Ewell. Thanks for coming, guys. Appreciate you being here. I want to thank the town board members, Deputy Supervisor Wozzachowski, Supervisor Ketzley, for allowing me to promptly promote Matt to the position of lieutenant after the recent retirement of Lieutenant Rick Conlon. A little background about Matt. He was hired by the Glenville Police Department in January 2006 after serving the residents of Johnstown as a police officer from 2002 through 2006. He started his career as a deputy sheriff at the Fulton County Sheriff's Department from 1996 through 2002. Matt's been around a little while. Matt began his career with Glenville, primarily working the afternoon shift until he was promoted to sergeant in October 2012. He's primarily been the afternoon supervisor ever since. The decision to promote Matt to lieutenant was based on several reasons. Matt has always been known as a professional police officer. He has the positive attributes that make his interaction with the public supervisors, peers, and subordinates consistently positive. Matt has great communication skills, an extreme amount of common sense, and a sense of humor that is infectious. His shift has been very fortunate to have a true gentleman as their leader. Matt has always been interested in continuing his education in modern policing, supervision, and community service. When a decision like this is made to promote someone to a management position, there are several questions one must ask themselves. 1, will the individual lead by example? 2, will the individual represent the organization and municipality in a positive manner? 3, will the individual fairly and quickly address instances of policy or procedure violations? 4, will the individual commit to the success of the organization as a whole? The answer to these for me is that Matt will not only meet these goals, but undoubtedly surpass expectations. So Matt, if you could come on up. Matthew?
I want to apologize to your family to have to sit through that. I apologize. I wasn't told you about it. So, please raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I, Matthew Weiss,
I, Matthew Weiss,
do solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
and the laws of the United States
and the laws of the United States
and the Constitution and the laws of the State of New York,
and the Constitution and the laws of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of lieutenant
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of lieutenant
with the police department of the town of Glenville,
with the police department of the town of Glen,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
There you go.
Want to say a few words, Matt?
Well, I'd like to thank the town board and Chief Jan. It's an opportunity to take seriously. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a little bit of a change from what I've done for 23 years. This is actually the first time I have a day job. I'm looking forward to that also. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. We need to get you You want to take a picture?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I did it again.
Come on, Bill. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We apologize for the mass exodus, but usually in these events, we kind of move to another place where we can celebrate a little bit. So everybody and anybody's invited down to the flight line because that's where we're going to reconvene. So please come and join us for a little bit if you don't mind. Thank you. Thank you.
Give a minute for folks to leave. Next item on the agenda is a resolution imploring the state of New York to pass a certain bill regarding the emergency personnel present at a crime scene in relation to the discovery process. Do I have a motion?
I will move it.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Moved and second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, I don't generally read verbatim resolutions, but I will read this one into the record. Whereas the town of Glenville requests that the first responders in the town be granted similar privacy rights to law enforcement officials as it relates to discovery in the New York State criminal procedure law. And whereas as both municipal employees and volunteers, first responders here in the town of Glenville and elsewhere are in many instances called upon to provide emergency services at crime scenes, making them subject to providing witness testimony. And whereas beginning on January 1st, 2020, paragraph D of subdivision 1 of section 245.20 of the New York State Criminal Procedure Law exempts and protects law enforcement personnel from being mandated to disclose their addresses and contact information in the newly initiated discovery process through the recently passed criminal justice reform law for defendants and their attorneys to safeguard them and their families from threats and intimidation. And whereas the changes that took place in New York State law failed to extend this privacy protection to our ambulance services or advanced life support first response services, certified first responders, firefighters, emergency medical technicians, or advanced emergency medical technicians who are employed by or enrolled members of any such service. And whereas the discovery process under current law requires an expedited timeline to provide witnesses, names, and contact information related to the prosecution of a crime from defendants within 15 days of arraignment. And whereas it is in the best interest of the town of Glenville to advocate for its first responders and ensure the protection of their personnel and families, and not to be subject to potential witness tampering or intimidation. This resolution now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Glenville hereby implores New York State Legislature to pass Senate Bill S.27280/Assembly Bill A9107, which ensures privacy protections for all emergency personnel as provided to law enforcement personnel and others.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Supervisor, I do feel that this resolution speaks for itself, but as a first responder who is not receiving any protections under this law myself in my regular job, I'm very proud that the town is taking this leadership step. Our first responders, whether they be firefighters or EMTs or paramedics or any other class of first responder, whether they work in our town, whether they volunteer, or whether they are career staff, are entitled to these protections. We go out into the night and we help people on their worst day. And I would like to think that this was an unintended consequence of these recent changes. And so I do hope that this, along with other voices throughout the state, will bring about this change that is so necessary.
I agree.
In fact, Mr. Supervisor, there are a number of deficiencies with the current bail reform laws as well as the current discovery reform laws. This resolution highlights one of them. I'm glad the town is doing this.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I just add that I do believe that the entire thing needs to be reformed. I think the discovery issues that our police department and law enforcement is dealing with now is egregious, but this is an important first step, at least, and I'm proud to be supporting it along with my colleagues. Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Yaragosa?
Yes.
Councilman Goddard?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Capson?
Yes, resolution passes. Next resolution, scheduling a public hearing for Wednesday, February 18th regarding the Freedom Bridge Road zoning district and update design guidelines. Do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Or a second?
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, it is finally here. The Freeman Bridge Road zoning district, there's been a lot of work on this by a lot of people, a lot of very fruitful and I think important discussion. But we finally reached the point where this can get into a formal part of our decision. And in that regard, we're setting a public hearing on this for Wednesday, February 19th at 7 p.m. in this room.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Yaragosa?
Yes.
Councilman Goddard?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Capson?
Yes, resolution passes. Next resolution 13, scheduling a public hearing for Wednesday, February 19th regarding consideration to parking regulation updates. Do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
A second.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, in regards to the other work that's been done by the zoning revision committee, we're looking to update our parking standards that are mandated in zoning, primarily relating to that for shared parking. That would be a useful way for us to hopefully have less pavement in our town and more beautification in our commercial development by sharing our parking. That's just one of the things that's included in this. And again, it was a lot of hard work by the volunteers in the committee.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Aragosa?
Yes.
Councilman Godlewski?
Yes.
Councilwoman Worzbowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Ketzler?
Yes, resolution passes. Lastly, our add-on resolution authorizing the town supervisor to request bids regarding the construction of the pavilion and related work in Melwood Park. Do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded.
Okay, as I understand it, this is an add-on for going out to bid on the long-awaited pavilion in the park at Melwood.
Yes. Any other questions or comments?
I'll just say that I'm glad to see we're finally getting there. As a board member of the soccer club years ago, we were hoping for it then. Glad to see it's getting there.
The theme of the night is it takes time, but we eventually get there. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Aragosa?
Yes.
Councilman Godlewski?
Yes.
Councilwoman Worzbowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Ketzler?
Yes, resolution passes. Last item on the agenda, new business. I'll start on my left with Councilman Godlewski.
No new business, Mr. Chairman.
Councilwoman Worzbowski.
I have none.
Councilman Martin.
Yes, I do have one item. I would like to bring to the board's attention, if you didn't see it online, there's an article about county sales tax revenue going up. And glad to see Melissa's here. Michelle, I'm sorry, Michelle. I would like to extend a formal invitation with our county legislatures to have a workshop to meet and discuss about this. Because I know that Schenectady County, by this article, had a 2.1% increase in sales tax revenue. And it's been a long-held belief of mine that we need to be sharing in that in a better way with the towns. And I also noticed in this article, because I understand it's a provision in the sales tax law, that some cities directly take their sales tax. They have a provision by which they can do that. And the long-held argument I've heard is we can't give any more sales tax revenue to the towns because it's just the agreement strictly between the city and the county. Well, the city has the option to opt out of that and then get the sales tax revenue directly. You know, we've seen a lot of great things being proposed here tonight, and these things are, you know, expensive. And one goal that was on one of those slides was reducing the residential tax burden, the real property tax burden. This is a way we can do that. And I would hope that the representatives of the legislature are as interested in lowering that residential tax bill here for the residents in this community as we are. And I would like to have that meeting. And I extend that direct invitation, and I would even, you know, support a resolution drafting a letter to extend that invitation if that's what it takes. But I think that's a discussion we need to have. The agreement expires this year. It's due to be taken up again, and now is the time. We need to have a serious, meaningful discussion about this and how can we distribute the sales tax in a more equitable manner, because it's not equitable right now. We've had no increase for the entire length of this agreement, and that can't happen. It's gotta change. It can't all be county and city money. It just cannot.
2 years ago, Supervisor Syed and I from Muskegon hosted a District 3 legislative meeting here in this room on that. It's probably time to do that again, and I would want the other town from District 3 to be involved in it as well.
I would invite all the towns. I have no problem with all the towns being here, and let's hear from everybody. But we need to have this discussion in this county because it is not right. And the residents of this county can't bear it anymore. And what I'm implying, and I fully understand, maybe we have to look at cutting spending at the county level rather than always talking about how we can increase revenue. It is not a revenue problem. It is a spending problem. We spend too much.
So, just to summarize, so what I'll do, let's reach out to the county, and maybe we'll do a resolution, as you indicated. I'll reach out to Supervisor Syed, and we'll get something together for at least a district, start with a District 3, and then go from there.
I would love
Thank you.
it. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Councilman Aragosa.
No new business.
New business. Okay, so no other new business before us. I'll take a resolution to adjourn.
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Second. Moved in second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you.